Hello and welcome to the Uncapped podcast, brought to you by Roasthouse Pub, one of Frederick's finest craft beer and culinary destinations, where great people come to drink amazing beer. Visit them to track their taps and menu at roasthousepub.com, or download the digital Pour app to track what's on tap.
I'm your host, Chris Sands, and all the way from Waldorf, Maryland this week, we have the whole crew from BlueDyer Distilling Company, and I'm going to let all of you introduce yourselves and what you do for BlueDyer, because I will make a complete debacle of that if I try myself. So we're going to start with Jasmine.
Jasmine Vierheller. I'm the master of the master distillers.
So you keep everyone in check and make sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Exactly.
She orders Domino's like no other. She doesn't let us run out of NOS, which our stills are actually fired by NOS energy drink, not electricity.
That's a rarity.
If NOS went down, BlueDyer, we're done. We're done. Keeps us running.
And who are you?
Ryan Vierheller. I'm the master distiller, co-founder.
And I'm Walker Dunbar, co-founder.
Great. And as I said, you're located in Waldorf, Maryland?
Yes, sir.
And can you tell me what a BlueDyer is? Because I have no idea.
Okay, so a BlueDyer was a profession in, we'll call it colonial times. A dyer made dye for fabric, and a BlueDyer made a specific dye for fabric. And what separated a BlueDyer from a dyer was that the BlueDyer worked with two plant materials, particularly indigo and woad, which made a whitish blue fabric dye for linen. And the materials were not water soluble. So a BlueDyer in particular had to ferment, distill an industrial alcohol to soak out the dye pigment from indigo and woad. So in order to make that particular dye, they had to use distillation equipment.
Oh. And
why we use the name, my first relative who came to the country and settled in Adams County, Pennsylvania, circa 1720, William Werman. And he built a mill up there, and it's still there. There's a Werman's Mill Road. But he went by that moniker, BlueDyer. And we've done the genealogical research and traced my mom's side of the family back to him. And so we have copies of letters that he wrote to his family, to his children. We have a copy of his will. We have copies of minutes of meetings between him and the Quakers. And he wrote BlueDyer. Like it was such an important nickname that in his own will he writes, I, William Werman, comma, BlueDyer, comma. And so that was what he was known by. He was the BlueDyer.
Okay.
Fast forward about 9 generations, my great-granddad picks up the name BlueDyer, paying homage to his relative, and uses it as his nom de guerre while bootlegging over in Stafford County, Virginia. And his son, my granddad, gets old enough to go out to the still site, which I think is about 10 or 11 years old, to come start helping. And so he picks up the name, and they used it for a good long while as their nom de guerre while moonshining and running their products up into Alexandria and D.C., across the Potomac into southern Maryland. So they were making spirits before, during, and after Prohibition. And so I grew up working on Granddad's farm almost every summer from about 12 to 20 and heard all the stories. And Granddad was really fond of the BlueDyer name. He kept a personalized license plate on one of his work trucks that said BlueDyer. And so when we finally got the idea to open the distillery, I mean, the name was a no-brainer, like, boom.
Yeah, it would be
it's
BlueDyer
Distilling.
It's a really cool name, and the history just adds so much more to it too. That's awesome. Right. I'm always so envious of like people who can trace their families with such detail back that far. That's amazing.
We were lucky in that there was a lady in the 80s, Miss Parks, and she married into the Werman family, but she literally researched and published a book. And then from there, it was very, and my grandmother had it, so we went up and got a hold of the book, because even in my family, if you asked grandmom, a great aunt, my mother, and one of her sisters, you got 4 stories on where the BlueDyer name came from, and because we were going to use it commercially,
You wanted the real one.
I said, we need to know, because it has to be defensible. We can't just go out here and say, hey, the BlueDyer was a Colonial helicopter pilot. And somebody's going to be like, I'm calling you on that one. Prove it. So we were able to, based on her book, it's very easy to trace where all the members in the lineage, that go directly from the original BlueDyer to me.
So what were you doing before? Well, actually, I guess you are from a long line of distillers, just maybe the first one to do it legally.
Correct.
That's pretty cool. Well, what were you doing before?
Law enforcement.
So did you arrest any of your
No.
forefathers?
No. Walker and I met. We worked for Bladensburg City Police in Prince George's County. I was there almost 15 years. And just kind of, in the last few years, got disillusioned with the profession. And almost 4 years ago now, Jazz and I were in New York, and we toured a little distillery there. And as we were riding home on the train, and I was already on the iPad. Like, what are you doing?
Stills.
I'm like, we're going home to open a distillery. That's amazing. Didn't realize you could do that legally as a job. Like, these guys left professions that they weren't happy with. They're having great success. There's no distillery in Southern Maryland, to my knowledge. I didn't realize it at the time. I just grew up hearing these stories about Granddad and his exploits, and you never think like, oh, I'm going to do something with that. And it just everybody has like their light bulb moment. I had my little epiphany. I was like, wait a minute. It's almost like we were supposed to take this and do something with it.
Your destiny.
Yeah, sure.
Hey, Walker, you were an officer also?
Yep. And then I just kind of looked at some of the more tenured officers, and a bunch of them had like 2-3 heart attacks, and a few were upside down in their houses and stuff. And I was like, no, this is not it, man. They're working night shift. After 27 years, they're working midnight to 6 a.m. or 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. And I'm like, this is not what I want to be doing in 25 years, working 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. I want to kind of be there for.
And now we work 30-hour shifts.
Yeah, didn't really.
But I'd venture to guess that operating a distillery is way safer.
Yeah, for the most part. The stills tend to be a little less problematic than the criminal individuals.
Don't talk back quite as much.
Yeah, they
still have our problems.
So, Jasmine, do you work at the distillery full time, or are you?
I do what I can to help these guys out.
She does about 90% of the labeling. On our little label roller, I've never broke 200 bottles in an hour, and she can do 5. She also is the final set of eyeballs for quality control, so she rejects things, cracking the bottle, labels on crooked, and then just consistently looks at us like, how did you miss this? So we're rocking and rolling on the bottle machine.
We're busy.
Well, the labels, too, we have 2 seams that run down the side of our bottles, and
so you try to make sure it lines up.
Yeah, and Ryan and I aren't really that great at it. So if you ever get a bottle and the label's a little wonky over one of the things, that was probably one of the ones we did. But if it's perfectly in between the 2 seams, that was Jasmine.
What's absolutely hilarious is that you are not the first people to tell me that.
Oh, yeah.
I can't remember who now, but there was someone else at a distillery who said like almost the exact story. If you see a bottle that the seams aren't right in proportion to the label, I did it. If it's perfect, my wife did it.
Yep.
Hey, everybody has their strengths and weaknesses. We're a really effective team, particularly Walker and I, having worked in law enforcement together and working in high stress situations where you don't have a lot of time to communicate. It's like a couple quick words and then you have to take action. He's been an amazing business partner. We literally are able to, in 2 minutes of conversation, draw, okay, he's busy doing that, and then we tend not to overlap or step on each other's toes. We don't second-guess each other. I think there's a lot of trust here.
Yeah.
I trust you.
Yeah.
It's at least one way.
Yeah.
But no, that's great. I've been trying to actively learn more about, you decide to become an entrepreneur. And then you decide that, distilling is the entrepreneurial endeavor that you're going to move towards. And everybody wants to become a better producer of spirits. But when there's a little bit of downtime, I've lately really been working on increasing our entrepreneurial chops. So, like, I've been watching a podcast, for instance, Gary Vee's out here laying out gems for small business owners week in and week out. And one of the things Gary Vee says is self-awareness is key to success. So you have to know what you're good at and double, triple down on what you're good at. And then you have to hire or find people that are good at the things. And you have to be aware of what you're not. Because if you try to be everything, you will fall down. And I think that Walker and I are very good at different things. And he's much better at the things he's good at. So I'm just like, hey, dude, go. I'm going to be here and be your cheerleader. Like, rock out. And he kind of does the same with me. And we've never had this conversation.
That's that has been definitely a theme of the different people we've had on. Some of the more successful places we've had on, of the group of ownership, that people start to, even if you started out kind of doing everything,
we did.
Both of you doing everything, you kind of just separated into, a lot of places the owners separate into what they're best at and then focus on just that section. So makes sense to do that, I guess.
Yeah, you have to, and it's definitely good having the ability to do that. And then we can also go the other way, so that, since we both started out doing everything, we can both do everything. So it's nice when this person has to go do this, and you can switch.
But you're not both stuck there all the time, or something not getting done.
Occasionally, Walker gets a call, and I never ask for help, but when my voice gets wimpy, he's like, is it Broken Arrow down there, buddy? I'm like, it's Broken Arrow. I need help. I'm overrun. He's like, I'll come in tomorrow and help knock out some stuff. I'm like, thank you.
So did either of you have any experience with distilling before you started? And I'm sure whatever you did, it was legal, so we'll just get that out of the way, that you had, I think, the educational license to practice?
I had no experience beforehand.
My granddad stopped selling liquor in probably the mid-'40s, but he never stopped making it. He did well for himself. He had a contracting company, and having lived through the Great Depression, their mentality was you put your money into land because the government can take your money from the bank, but land is safe and the value over time always goes up. And it was just, that was a mentality that they had, being fiercely independent, like self-made people. So he ran a contracting firm, but he was able to retire in the 90s, and was retired just working on his farm and maintaining his rental properties for many years. And so Granddad, I had seen him run his still. He liked to make White Lightning, corn liquor, would be unaged whiskey or corn whiskey. He made some fruit brandies. He made a dandelion wine that was only he liked it. But there's 12 grandchildren. I think every one of us has a story at some point of being on the farm and Granddad pulling a clay jug out and offering us what he called a nip. So it's kind of, here you go, boy. Take a nip of that. Let's see if you're a man. So, but no formal training.
So did any of you do home brewing, or just dive right in and learn how to distill spirits?
I love to cook.
We're also both avid readers,
Okay.
so kind of got every book you could, and definitely pulled a lot of the different papers that you could read on it to kind of figure it out. So.
And you guys have like a classic pot still, right? Or,
No.
okay.
It's
so I'm thinking of a different place I looked at pictures.
Franken still, if you will. We designed and built our own mash tun. We designed or had fabricated. None of us are stainless welders, unfortunately. But same with our stills. We run a vertical cylinder boiler column. A lot of still pots are more squat and wider. Ours are just like imagine a Coke can, but size it up to 175 gallons with a cone top, vertical cylinder boiler. And our fractioning column is a hybrid. It's a part fractioning and part pot still column. We actually set our pot still column on top of our fractioning column, which I've been told by numerous people is upside down. And I'm very happy that they dislike the way that I designed the still, because I love it. Runs like a charm. But it's all our design. Everything that's going on inside, the placement of all that copper in our fractioning tower is something that we did and then tinkered with over a course of a few months to fine tune it. But I mean, you can't go to any website or company and order our still from one place. It doesn't exist. It's just made from parts.
So what was it from reading and like doing research at different still designs on like that
Yep.
settled you on that?
I read like maybe 3 or 4 dozen engineering papers on thermodynamics, and spent a couple months teaching myself vapor flow path calculations and distillation science, from classic chemistry text all the way to there's a lot of information that's available on distillation apparatus design for the petroleum industry, believe it or not. And while I was still working at the police department on notebook paper, I mean, like 6 notebooks, I designed our stills from scratch, the heat, the electric controls, the vessel size, vapor flow, all of it.
So you're saying you're much smarter than I am.
I'll say this: he's actually much smarter than a lot of people. I'm pretty much on a daily basis impressed with what he's able to teach himself and learn and whatnot. So
I'm not the smartest man in the world. I love to read, and I retain things. My ability to retain is really good. Like, I mean, I went to college. I got my bachelor's and I got my master's. And there was people there that would pick up concepts much quicker than me. So, like, they're smart because they figured it out the first time. I'm just stubborn and persistent. So I'll read something 50 times until I think, oh, now I get it. But it's one of the hundreds of forks in the road at BlueDyer that left was fail and right was success, but we didn't know that left was fail, right was success. I mean, if we're not supposed to be here doing this, then I don't know what we're supposed to be doing, because every time we hit a fork where we could have fallen apart, we seem to have chosen the direction that allowed us to continue with building the business.
So what was it about that particular design of the still that attracted you to it? Why did you settle on that?
Should we tell the truth? Because I'm cheap. Yeah. and I guess, man, I'm finding out a lot about myself today on Uncapped. So the economics of the design, coupled with our tendency to be very independent. In anything, I mean, in any industry, anywhere you go, I think the worst reason when you ask, well, why do we do this? Why do we do this here? And somebody says, well, that's the way we've always done it. Automatically.
That's the wrong way. Usually.
There's often a more effective way to do things. But, I mean, we looked at what was available in the industry. What's unique right now about the craft distillery industry is there really isn't the big clearinghouse for equipment. I mean, in the wine industry, there's home batch size stuff, there's small, medium producer sized equipment, and then there's the large scale industrial production equipment, and beer's the same way. At every scale, there are a multitude of equipment producers. The distillery industry, and if you sort of equate it to beer at the micro and nano sizes, which is what most of us are, there is some equipment that is redundant to the wine and beer industry and it's readily available, and other times we're out here looking for something that literally doesn't exist. There is no providers. So you can't just call restaurant supply and say, hey, dial me up one of them 350-gallon pot stills. What? But you can get all the stoves and ranges and microwaves.
Yeah.
And so I've seen a lot of interesting designs and repurposings of equipment in our industry. But until the manufacturers catch up with the industry, it's almost at a necessity. And that's the mother of invention. And I'm pretty sure if necessity is the mother of invention, then poverty must be its father, because no, it's just like, and here's the thing. Nobody's going to sit back and drink our whiskey.
From looking at the pictures, though, there is a ton of copper sitting there, so that still could not have been cheap, unless you were out robbing rooftops and stripping stripping the compressors for HVAC.
No, the vessels are all stainless.
Okay, the
copper is all inserted inside, so it's all modular, so we're able to break it apart, clean it, refresh the copper to bright from time to time. If some of the copper media is worn down, we can easily replace that, versus having a vessel built of copper, and now you're eroding the vessel from the inside out every time you run it.
Yeah.
So the copper in there there is well over 100 pounds packed in each one of our columns.
And a lot of it's copper mesh too, so probably have a significant amount more surface area than if we made the large parts of the distill out of copper itself. So, and that's our big thing is we probably opened the entire facility for what some people were spending on their still. And that's what we wanted to do. But our philosophy for us opening was we wanted to make sure that our first product was available on the shelf. That's something that somebody that could buy that was, a rookie firefighter, a rookie police officer could buy on their rookie salary on a regular basis. We saw a lot of bottles throughout the country that were being sold for $70, $80 for $750, and we wanted to make sure that we could kind of make those micro distilled spirits more accessible to just anybody that needed to buy it. I mean, we're looking at where we came from, and we both have 2-3 jobs since we were 15, trying to make that
like 20.
available to everybody. Yeah.
I've literally worked everywhere.
Yeah. So just trying to make it available, and that's what we were trying to do. So a lot of things we did. When he was talking about modular, we just took a page out of Henry Ford's playbook. Everything's in modular, and we can increase and decrease production based on demand. And anything that's a like-for-like part can swap and switch, but then you can also replace parts once they get worn down a lot cheaper than if they were specific built for you.
Plus, realistically, I mean, we all give tours, and the tours are part of our distilleries have become extensions of who we are as culinary artists, as business people, as personalities. Yeah, my parents used to scold me because they'd buy me something for Christmas, and within an hour I was upstairs dismantling it. Like, I've been at this my whole life, and not spending a ton of money on the equipment. For me, nobody drinks whiskey and says this tastes really bad, but when I went on the tour, that pot that they made it in is a work of art, and I'll continue to drink this poor tasting product. Like,
yeah,
is your own design going to be as aesthetically pleasing as something that's 20 times the price? Probably not. But ultimately,
I would assume that a lot of consumers probably never going to see it. So unless you look at pictures and. But
right.
I would care much more what it tastes like than if it's pretty.
Right.
What it comes from is pretty.
Yeah. I'm happy with it. We designed our stuff. It works the way we want. Don't need an owner's manual.
Doesn't exist.
All right. I'm going to take a quick break to thank Roasthouse Pub again.
Yes, sir.
While we're doing that, do you want to pour out the first spirit you brought that you want us to try? So once again, thank you, Roasthouse Pub, for your support of the Uncapped podcast. Coming up, they have the Victory Rarity Night with $5 pours on December 21st. Then on December 28th, our friends from Monument City are back to battle hometown Frederick's own Monocacy Brewing Company with Mom's Spaghetti Dinner. And someday I will find out for sure what exactly the battle entails and explain that. And then on January 4th, Oliver Brewing Company, one of the oldest breweries in Maryland's having their 25th birthday bash. So stop on by on the Roasthouse Pub and enjoy one of the 25 delicious, or 20 to 21 delicious beers they have on tap, and the amazing culinary creations that Chef Nico comes up with. All right, so what do we have here?
This is our rum. Rum is our first product. It's our best seller. It's our American Distilling Institute Silver Medal winner. So you want to try some?
Come. Like that. It smells good.
So we do a sulfur-free baker's grade molasses and pure cane sugar base. We ferment with the champagne yeast, which is a little bit unconventional for rum, but it results in a very clean taste profile in the beer.
I was just going to comment on like how smooth this is.
Yes, sir.
That's nice.
We distill 4 times, and of course it's in stills that we designed around this first product, and we age in a high char northern Minnesota sourced white oak, and we do nothing else. So the majority, and sort of my critique on Caribbean produced rums in the price range of our product, is that they tend to rely too much on the addition of sugars, burnt or otherwise. You might call them syrupy. And I knew that you could get a predominantly caramel and vanilla flavor from the right oak. And so we brought in barrels from 9 different cooperages in the beginning. We made our clear base rum, and we put it in the different barrels. And when it was like 4:30 in the morning, we pulled that was fun. We had to drink it all for science, but and the business, the good.
Wait, I mean, you can't possibly not try everything.
When we pulled this particular rum from the Minnesota barrels, we were just floored. I mean, Walker and I literally looked at each other and just said, "This is it. We don't touch it. We do nothing else. This is it." So it's not traditional for there to be no sugar additions in a gold rum.
Yeah.
This now it does have sugar because it's caramelized glucose. When you char a barrel, you create carbon, and you caramelize the glucose inside the wood pulp, and that dissolves into the spirit, thus giving it its color and flavor. But it's sort of the most natural, most well-preserved sugar possible, because when you cut the wood, it was trapped inside of the cells. So like nature's microscopic Tupperware, keeping those sugars fresh, and when you char them up. So that's how we do our rum. It's very simple. In all of our spirits, if we do flavor, I try to obtain the flavors from as natural a source as possible. So this is all wood, all wood, all wood. And then, of course, on the gin, it's just the 2 classic gin flavors, juniper and citrus, nothing else. I call myself a minimalist spirit construction guy. I don't want to use artificial or too much outside flavor, because I'm very confident that we produce high-quality spirit bases, and I don't want to overshadow the quality of the spirit. Because you can dump enough sugar or vanilla in anything.
Yeah.
And you don't know if it's a quality spirit or not. Later, tomorrow, you'll know. But I like to let the base spirit shine through enough that, we're very proud we serve all of our spirits on our tours, neat on the rocks, no cocktails, no mixing. And we get a lot of compliments from people that say, I'm a wine drinker, or I don't drink spirits by themselves, but the whole BlueDyer line was approachable for me to try. So
that is tremendously smooth and delicious.
Yeah.
And it's funny, like people commenting on drinking just on the rocks or just straight. I mean, I came into this year not caring about spirits at all, not liking them at all. That's the only way I drink anything now. And I've definitely picked. I mean, I'm still very much beer centric, but I bought big whiskey ball ice makers, and that's just what I drink with. And I imagine that rum would be absolutely delicious that way.
Well, that's one of my favorite things about the craft spirit movement right now is that, for 80 years after Prohibition, big liquor owns liquor. They dictate what's good, what isn't. They dictate that, for instance, if we put single barrel on the bottle, that's suddenly better and you pay more for it. And now you have all these craft houses coming along and producing great products. The vast majority of us are producing wonderful products. We're challenging big liquor stranglehold because people they come in and try our products and they're amazed. This is smooth. It doesn't burn the palate.
Yeah.
There's just a little heat on the way down. We see people make the face where they're getting ready for it, like, oh wait, that's really good. How'd you do that? I thought, and it's a perception that's been ingrained into the consumer that liquor's gonna burn, and then they try craft spirits and they're amazed. Wait a minute. This is liquor? This is delicious.
Yeah, and that rum, it was only like a little bit on the tongue, a burn lit, and maybe a tiny bit down the throat, but mainly just a little tingle, like a little bit of heat on the tongue, but so smooth. Now I want to try the whiskey.
Is there?
Yeah, it's funny when we go out and do tastings at liquor stores or at farmers markets. We never mix our stuff in anything when we do it. We always tell people, we want you to know what the base product is. If you're going to be buying this, we want you to know what you can do with it, what you want to do with it. Do you want to drink it neat? Do you want to drink it on the rocks? Mix it with whatever you want to mix it with. And it's funny, people think we're crazy when they see us doing that. They're like, no. These big companies come in, they send people in, they send them in with this big jug of something. I'm like, yeah, well, if I mix it in fruit punch, yeah, it's going to taste good. It's like red sugar and water, right? Like, it's going to taste like the fruit punch. It's going to be great. So it floors people that we just serve it in like little plastic cups at 10 o'clock in the morning at a farmer's market, and people are like, oh wow, that's really good. And it's like, yeah, you weren't expecting to be drinking at 10 o'clock in the morning trying something.
Yeah.
But
we put a ton of work in on our products, and we're very proud of what we produce. We don't take
Pull that over a little.
We don't
There
take
you
shortcuts. Go. We strive to source high quality materials, and this is redundant. Everybody's in the craft industry is essentially doing the same.
So it's a whiskey distilled from bourbon mash. Does that mean it?
If you look at the TTB, the Alcohol Tobacco Tax Bureau under the U.S. Treasury that regulates us, they have a document that designates what the legal definition is of every type of spirit. And most spirits might have 2 or 3 different categories, and whiskey has like 50.
The whiskey is even more smooth than the rum.
Thank you. So, whiskey distilled from a bourbon mash is distilled from a mash, a grain bill that meets the criteria of a bourbon. So it's over 51% corn and other grains. In our case, it's 80% corn, 7% rye, 13% malted barley. And we're very proud. Shout out to Hopkins Farm in Haver to Grace. Aaron Hopkins started one of the state's first malt houses, and I believe we were his very first distillery customer. So we are using a Maryland grown and malted barley in our whiskey.
Nice.
But because we don't use a new barrel on our whiskey for every barreling, it cannot be a bourbon. Also, we use a combination of oak casks and locally to Southern Maryland sourced charred cherry wood inserts that we cut, dry, manufacture, char all ourselves in-house. That sweet finish that lingers on the palate, which everyone is searching for. What is that? Because that's the unique aspect of this particular whiskey. but it comes from the addition of cherry to the aging process.
Okay.
So it's a 2-wood whiskey in layman's terms, and these are popular 2-wood American whiskeys. If you had to classify what we've done here, it's labeled as a whiskey distilled from a bourbon mash to make the tax man happy, because that's, according to them, what it fits into. But so west to southwestern Virginia, there's a lot of 2-wood American whiskeys. Copper Fox, Copper Kettle, Belmont Farms does one. They like Applewood's popular, and cherry's not terribly popular. And here's where Walker can chime in. What is the last thing you want to tell me? You can't do that.
Yeah.
It's like, I want to use cherry. And Walker immediately goes, I don't think that's a good idea, knowing that that's going to drive me to go out and try harder. So, but it took us about 7 or 8 months. My poor father got involved because he's the best woodworker amongst us. And it turns out that cherry's really tricky to work with. The dark hued cherry is bitter when you char it. The lighter hued cherry tastes sweet, but it has a bad nose. It's like got a waxy odor. So nobody wants to drink something that smells bad, even if it tastes good. So it took us months of cutting wood and determining, we think, we had to come up with our own classification system for the color range and testing pH and figuring out which color of cherry, once air dried and charred, would provide the flavor we were looking for.
So you're dismantling the barrels and replacing?
No.
You're putting
additional, when I say charred staves, they hang into the barrel.
Okay.
So cherry, I don't believe you can make a traditional barrel from cherry. It's a bitter.
So
it's a brittle hardwood, and so it wouldn't expand the way oak does. So that's the only way we can utilize cherry as a flavoring wood.
So what made you want to do that? Just an idea popped in your head, or you thought
that's the region where my great granddad started making his liquor, was southwestern Virginia. So it's kind of a nod to where that BlueDyer got started. I wanted to do a 2-wood whiskey. I don't want to do any spirit that, people ask why we don't do a dead traditional bourbon. It's like, because there's hundreds of places that have been in business for years and years and years that are backed by enormous amounts of money, and that's what they're doing. As a small guy, I'm all for the David and Goliath, but I'm not trying to jump into a market and I'm a minnow and there's 57 hammerhead sharks, and I'm like, let me jump in that pool. So I like to look for products that either we can do a different element, like to differentiate ourselves, and if you like it, you're gonna come to BlueDyer because it's like that. I've never had something just like that.
I love the lingering aftertaste of that. I'm guessing, is that the cherry? It's just this, like,
it's just a little
slight, sweet, lingering taste.
Yep.
That's really good.
Yeah, and it's actually hard because we get people a lot of times at tastings or when they come to the facility or farmers markets, they always ask, they're like, well, what does this compare to? And I'm like, well, that's kind of our goal, is that we're not trying to have our stuff compared. They're like, yeah, I understand that, but if you had to compare it to something, I'm like,
just try it.
I was like,
that's my answer.
Yeah,
just try it.
That's what I usually end up saying to
it's
people.
Different.
I guess that's a thing for people who maybe know just a little bit about something but don't want to go too outside their comfort zone. Yeah. But I hate when like Graham and I went to a brewery over the summer, and the beer was just absolutely horrible. But every beer they went down, they were like, said the name, this is our version of another beer. I'm like, well, it's like, why don't you just say what it is instead of this is our version of this? And not even like a style. It was this version of this name brand beer.
What your opinion right now, craft beer wide on IPAs? What do you feel about IPAs in general?
Oh, I'm a hophead. I love IPAs.
Just my take. I think that a lot of the IPAs that are coming out, because it is the trend, are becoming more similar and similar and similar to each other.
Oh, they definitely are, and especially like New England style IPAs. I mean, it's just they taste like fruit juice more or less. But I mean, I think that's a big part of why they're extremely popular, because people who may not necessarily even like beer could end up liking a New England IPA because they're not bitter, they're not They don't taste like beer. They
Who doesn't like beer?
There's definitely weirdos out there like that, and I don't want to know them, but I've heard about them.
I'm scared.
So now I'm looking. I really want to try your gin.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So how
we do London Dry gin, and we do a barrel rested gin. I know you talked to Braden. He explained that the Treasury doesn't like us to use the word aged next to gin.
It's
because
so weird.
There could be a confusion of epic proportions could result.
So I don't know that because I don't think anyone in Frederick makes a London Dry.
Well,
So I don't think I've ever had a London Dry gin.
the craft trend right now is multiple botanicals, and in my vein to be different, I went dead old school classic. Plus, I told you I like doing minimalist flavors. Let the spirits quality shine through.
That's good. So one of the I love licorice, but the anise in some gins is one of the parts of a lot of the craft gins that I don't like as much. So I like that being subtracted from it.
Right.
At the very end, there's a ton of citrus.
Right. So, plus, here's the thing: like a good mixologist can take a really high quality base spirit in a lot of different directions with how they craft and build the cocktail. So I like serving the pouring industry, the on-premise industry, by just providing really quality base spirits at reasonable price points, and let them, if they want to add different exotic flavors, let it be an addition on the cocktail rather than, because then if you go to too many flavors on a spirit, you
limit
pigeonhole yourself. Like, it may work in this cocktail but not in that one.
Yeah.
But when you do really, really clean classics, it can build a lot more cocktails as well.
So what are the botanicals in this?
Juniper and citrus.
What's used for the citrus?
It's actually some food grade citric flavoring and coriander. So we actually, on that, I double down on the citrus, and because our clear gin, not touching a barrel, gets about 10 times the filtration that any of our barrel aged spirits get. So the barrel lends sugars to the spirit, but it also changes some of the chemical components within the solution, as well as some negative components in the solution that bond into the carbon, like a crude version of a Brita filter. You've heard like a million explanations of how barrel aging works.
Well, but not on. I don't think what's really great so far is I feel like every distillery has come on has given different pieces of everything in depth.
Right.
So I don't know that that analogy has ever been used before.
Right.
Like with the
I have to. I'm not. Please forgive me. I'm trying to reduce things to like a palatable explanation.
Yeah.
And it's because they kicked me out of doing tours because people
use too many big words.
Well,
People also take 5 hours.
Folks are like, we're here to have a sample, and
We got to make a movie.
We've been in the still room for 39 minutes listening to this
I'd
guy.
really like to try some alcohol.
Right.
I'm just really passionate about, I want to teach you everything today. So I'm trying to do the Cribs Notes versions of things these days. But no, the barrel smooths out the flavor of the spirits. The London Dry doesn't get a barrel, so our mechanical filtration is our only tool for smoothing. So it gets a lot more filtration, and some of the filter pads we use on that are impregnated with carbon to give us that smoothing effect that the barrel would have.
That's a pretty big part of our distillery too. You really can't walk around our distillery without tripping over filtration systems. I mean,
We
that's
love
one,
them.
yeah.
It's our favorite. It's my favorite machine. All of them. Every one of them.
So how you may have mentioned it, and if you did, I'm really sorry. How long are the rum and whiskey aged / rested?
Currently, rum and whiskey we can say aged. Just
Okay,
not the.
I still can't
right?
keep track of what's allowed to be called aged and what has to be rested.
It's all for great reasons. Currently the rum's 6 months, whiskey's 3.
Okay.
We're working on adding more time into our aging before we label with any age declarations. And when you get started, I'll sort of tell you my thought on barrel aging is that there's a minimum time barrel aging that gives you a minimally acceptable product quality that you're willing to say, this is good enough, I'll put it out. But when we get to leave things in the barrel longer, they only get better. And that's true across the board. I've never run into a spirit that got more time, and I was like, oh, this got worse for having too much time in the barrel.
Yeah.
So as we're growing, we've been able to build some more time into the spirits. Like we won a silver for our rum, and it was, I don't think it had 2 months in the barrel. The stuff on the market today is at 6, and by January we'll be releasing our first 1-year age rum. Same label, same price point. Once we settle into a standard that we're happy with, we may start putting some age statements on the labels.
So one of my good friends, Jeff, just sent me a text that he loves you. Probably not meant to be read, but there.
No,
How long is the gin rested for?
A month.
Okay.
And that's going to stay consistent because
you just don't want to pick up as many of those flavors.
Right, exactly. If you look across the line, like the barrel gin is intended to be just a little lighter than the rum. The whiskey gets the barrel plus the additional staves, so it's exposed to more surface area of chard and thus picks up more and gives it a darker color. So that's going to stay consistent. And we use a once used Kentucky-sourced bourbon barrel from 1-8 Distilling. The big brother, they've been really nice to us, and we got into some barrels that we use for the barrel-aged gin from them.
Rested.
Yes, sir. Rested. Rested.
well played.
finished.
It's
And I guess in the barrel.
I guess it makes sense because of how much the barrel aging process changes the flavor of the spirits.
Right.
But it's funny how passionate different distilleries are about the different philosophies with barrel aging. Like it just runs the gamut of what like some distillers consider is gospel truth. It has to be this long. It has to be done this way. And then there's someone who like talked to some people who feel completely different or a variation. So I guess that's a big part of where the art form of creating spirits comes from.
Every artist likes a different paintbrush best,
Yeah.
right? But I mean, you can speed up the extraction of sugar, easy. It's some of the other chemical changes that happen only over time. I'm going to reference your previous podcast with a guy who does an excellent job of explaining the science very concisely is Ben Lyon, and he's been a big inspiration of ours. A lot of respect for everything that he does. And he talks about the breakdown of lignin into vanillin and how rum barrels are reused. And for instance, we had a guy call today while we were on the way up here, and he was at the distillery and he wanted to buy some barrels from us, and I said, no sir, we use the rum barrels over and over and over and over again because I know the longer I can keep them, they'll start to make some really neat changes on the rum.
Yeah.
So it's a different strategy for each different spirit. And it's all in what you're trying to do. Sometimes you nail it, sometimes you get pretty close. Usually if you get pretty close and don't nail it, you just got to wait a little longer. My dad, of course, when we were going to open a distillery and quit your career job, we were the least intelligent people in the world. And now that he's seen, he stood by us every step of the way. I mean, the guy will do anything. We call him at midnight. He's like, get up here with a pickup truck. We have to climb on the roof. Okay. You're a fool, but I'll be there. But he's one of our best tour guides, hands down, right?
Oh yeah, you can actually, if you read our reviews,
Mr. Dan. People are like, the liquor was delicious, but Mr. Dan was the man. And I show him the reviews, But one of the things he says, he says, the barrel will tell us when the liquor's ready. It's not going to be before. It's not going to be after. The barrel will let us know. So I mean, we have a target window on time, but after that, you got to get in and take some small samples and make a determination. And that's just one of the worst parts of the job, if you ask me, having to go in barrels and taste barrel cast strength spirits and determine if you think they're ready.
It's for science. we use that term a lot. Yeah.
So I since you brought up reviews, I was just thinking ahead to where I always ask, I haven't always, but I started, because breweries have some colorful reviews, asking everyone what the worst / most ridiculous review you've ever received is. And then once again, I look at your reviews, and they're all 5-star, and it's getting really annoying that every distillery we have on has nothing but 5-star reviews.
The Maryland craft distilleries are all a bunch of big, hairy American winning machines. We wake up in the morning and we distill excellence.
Apparently, because
we got a 4.
I did.
And if you read the 4, it's basically like awesome, amazing 4.
Yeah, it's one of those guys, probably one of those professors out there that will never give an A.
Yeah, your worst one was absolutely great experience. Torin tasting was amazing. Great people, great story, and great liquor. Can't beat it. I'll definitely be going back frequently for refills, especially the rum. And that's the worst review you've received.
Yep.
That's annoying.
But it's coming. It's coming. We're gonna get that review.
Well, when you get the really bad one, I want you to message me with.
Yeah, what it is. Yeah, we'll send you. We'll be like, it came in.
We're gonna have to put Walker on suicide watch, seriously, because he tends to be the keeper of the reviews. Like when we get a good one, he's always telling me, and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, let me check it out, or and when we do get a bad one, Walker's.
It's going to be bad.
And it's not even like you have hardly any reviews. You have 102, which for positive reviews is a lot, because people mainly just go to complain about things.
Yeah.
That is getting annoying with distilleries and everyone loving them.
Yeah.
There's no comedy in this.
No, right? Yeah.
The wife told me after 2 years of production, she said, and I'm going to paraphrase, you're going to have to correct me if I'm wrong, dear. It was something like, it turns out you're pretty okay at making liquor. I was like, that had to be the hardest one compliment of my life.
As it goes, your product is not awful.
Right. I don't want anybody listening to take that as a challenge, though, to come down and try to find something wrong and then end up doing the bad.
No, but it's as a small business, I mean, you live and die from your customer service.
Yeah.
You live and die from your reviews. I mean, we have people come in and we start working with Groupon, and distillers have different feelings about Groupon. Groupon is not trying to work with a small business where the small business I think they design the deals for you to lose money.
It's tough. At least like in the early days of Groupons, there was just story after story where like a small business wasn't helped with creating their Groupon, and it almost put them out of business because it was a poorly crafted one.
Mm-hmm. Right. We're probably going to get fired from working with Groupon now or something. I got to read the contract. I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about them. We have a contract with them. But
I don't know.
No, but they were great. They worked with us, and it was.
Well, they may have learned from those early years because there's a lot of bad press about it.
Yeah, well, but what you have to go into understanding with them is that they're sales reps when you're talking to them. So it took about 8-9 months of us going back and forth, finally going, no, we're not doing that. No, we're not doing that. This is what we can do. These are our margins.
Right.
And this is what we're looking for from this.
But like with our Groupons, we break dead even on the Groupon. And people will ask, like, oh, it's really inexpensive. I'm like, it's pretty much in line with most other people's Groupons. But the point I'm leading into is I do a little happy dance inside of my heart every time the door opens and the little alarm thing goes, deet, deet, front door. I'm just like, oh, thank you for coming. Well, because, I mean, you got to you got to pack luggage. It's Waldorf. You got to travel, across.
You have to really want to be
there. And there's not a ton down there. Our industry, our craft, alcohol production industries is a little behind. There's 4 vineyards now that are close by. We don't have a brewery in Charles County yet, but the county is working. Economic development, Kevin Addix has been down. We hosted a startup seminar last Monday. We're looking at rolling a class out at College of Southern Maryland to help try to grow the craft industry in the Southern Maryland Peninsula. But yeah, unfortunately, we're like a singular destination, and what you see in Frederick, like Frederick County has nailed it. I mean, they're
and
they made it inviting for people to come in, and just little stuff like the county fair, like where we are, no alcohol at the county fair. And it's the county, but the county doesn't control the fairgrounds. There's politics behind everything, but it's like if you want these industries, you have to work with the industries to help make it attractive. We're happy with being where we are because we're also is a big radius before you have a direct competitor. But the downside is when we open the doors, we're watching on social media and everybody's tasting rooms just packed. I was like, oh wow, man, they're probably paying the rent with the tasting room. Just snap of the fingers, boom, I'm open, money coming in. And we opened our doors, and there was a initial bump because we were brand new. We had a lot of people associated with the project that wanted to come try, but after about 6 months, our tasting room had the tumbleweed rolling through, and so we came up with some what we thought would be solutions to grow that, but we hit the ground running, pushing hard with trying to distribute our product because we're in an area with not as much population, and we're further away from areas with higher populations.
And as the laws are, it's less of going to distilleries, less attractive, or it's kind of less of a destination because you can only go and try straight.
Yep. Two ounces, no cocktails. And people have asked, they said, why don't you show the football game on Sunday? I said, dude, I can only pour you 2 ounces, and I'm bound by law to give you a guided tour. Me personally, 2 ounces is probably not getting me through a quarter. So, but people have asked about our ability under the 2 ounce rule, and where we can't sell a cocktail, and we're limited on the amount that we can serve, quite limited. It does inhibit our ability to do as many things on premise events. It limits our retail. Luckily,
I would think then definitely for you guys that if there's success in getting the ability to sell cocktails at a distillery, that will be a huge difference for traffic into your distillery.
Yeah, we could do more. Like we've brought in some food vendors, food trucks. We got amazing mobile culinary folks down in Southern Maryland. We got a barbecue guy. I'm gonna give a shout out to Brian from Smoker's Delight. This guy can do no wrong when he puts meat on the grill.
It's amazing that I joke with Ryan. I only go to the farmers markets and set up the table because Brian's there, and I can go over and get his ribs. You can take his rib and flick it, and all the meat just falls off. It's pretty incredible.
We got a great food truck does Southern Maryland sandwiches, like rockfish sandwiches, called County Manners. That comes, just so they're great events, but people still they don't stay too long, because we're just limited to basically the equivalent of a single drink.
Yeah. Now, farmers markets, that seems to be a place where distilleries are doing great at.
Great. Love it. Love it. Absolutely love it. Thank you to the folks at the comptroller for opening that up to us. It's been a great tool in growing our retail presence. But walking, I sit down. What do we figure? We were over 8,000 business cards?
Yeah.
Wow. This
year. The two of us and anybody from the family who helped came out, but we have our own business cards where we have one for the business that sort of has the pertinent details or whatever. We handed out 8,000 of those. And in our tasting room this month we're up thousands of % from last December. So
that's great then. So it definitely is.
And it's hard to, when you sit down and you look at the numbers, it's hard to figure out exactly what it is because we've grown to 4 products.
Yeah.
We've got Groupon going, Facebook, social media activity's gone up. But you can definitely tell there's a direct correlation between, because you do ask a lot of people, and a lot of them did see us at the farmers market, and they were like, "Yeah, we were there at the farmers market, and I tried your stuff at 9:30 in the morning. It was amazing. I figured I'd come back at 5 o'clock at night, actually get the tour, see where it's made, and then go forward with that." So it's definitely good for us to get out there and have people exposed to the product and be able to try it, because usually if we can get somebody to try it, then they're good to go. It's the same thing with we always joke about the gin. There are gin people and then not gin people, right? But I don't necessarily totally believe that, because I think a lot of people that don't like gin, it's not that you don't like gin, it's just you don't like bad gin, right? So it's like
I didn't like gin until this year.
Exactly.
And like all the gin I've tried so far this year from craft distillers blows away the horrible stuff I've had in the past.
Exactly, and that's why when I talk to people about it, they're either like, oh, I've got a bad experience, or like the one guy that came through and he was like, I've had a bad experience with it. I actually lost a finger to gin, and we're like,
that's a true story.
Yeah,
like half the pinky was going, and we're like, do you want some gin? And he goes, gin's how I lost my pinky. I was just like,
never mind. I'm sorry. We'll take it off the bar. Like,
I turned redder than a lobster. I was like, I'm sorry that we're throwing all the gin out right now. You want like some more rum, sir?
Yeah. No, but it's interesting to get, if we can just get people to try the gin, we're like, listen, it's probably that you just don't like bad gin, and then the barrel gin. Kind of jokingly call that one a gateway gin. That if we can, if you like dark liquors, and if we can try to get you to try the barrel rested gin, then going forward from there, then they'll actually try to clear gin. And we did very middle of the row. Not too citrusy. Doesn't make you feel like you got hit in the face by a pine tree. But that's where we were going for with that. And that's where the farmers markets are great, is getting people to try it, exposed to it, and then hopefully coming in and then seeing where we make it that, hey, actually, I saw you at the farm. Like, you're the dude at the farmers market, and now you're sitting here.
We get a ton of tours on Saturday and Sunday where people literally like, so I saw you this morning at the farmers market.
Yeah.
And you told me there's a distillery in Charles County. And I had to come see it. So I rounded up some of the, friends, family, whatever the case is. So it's been a great tool. But we're more tied to agricultural producers. I mean, my Rolodex, if you will, at the distillery has more farmers and politicians in it than I ever thought it would, doing this business. So the farmers market, I mean, it's a great match for what we do. We're a first tier agricultural product producer.
Yeah.
As we grow, and as breweries grow, as wineries grow in the state, we will, and already are, like I said, with the Hopkins Farm Malt, consume more locally grown products and directly support agriculture. So then the farmers market is a great logical extension, because people have come there with the intention of spending. Yeah, they're on
a premium for a locally
fresh
produced,
and local.
Yeah,
and we're just another extension of that. And so it's been a great reception. I'm really happy that we're allowed to get in on that. And I think everybody's taking advantage of it. And everybody all across the industry, they all seem to be doing quite well with the farmers markets.
So do you have plans to expand your product line further?
Yes. Yep.
So are you ready to talk about what you have coming up?
Yeah.
Or is it?
Yeah.
What do you have in the works?
Next month, dark rum. And about a month after that, port barrel finish whiskey.
Oh, wow.
We imported 6. They're not even barrels. They're casks.
Yeah,
they're 59-gallon behemoths. But we brought those in from a Portuguese port operation, and we're going to do a port finish whiskey. And the dark rum it's actually kind of funny. We made the rum, loved it. And I started immediately working on my recipe for dark rum. And I made like 6 different things. And it's not that any of them were bad. They're great. But they just weren't it. And I got frustrated. Like, man, maybe I'm a one-hit wonder here. Like, I can't seem to get the next thing that I really enjoy. And like, I got really depressed about it, and the wife had to talk me off the ledge a little bit. Like, honey, listen, you used to do some home brewing, put the rum aside. Why don't you work on your whiskey prototype? You guys want to get into the whiskey, like, let's go ahead and get that pinned down. And the first thing I made, I was just like in love with it, and it involved the addition of the cherry. So I was just dragged in a different direction. I said, okay, now I have to scale this from a 4-quart batch to a 2,100 gallon commercial batch. And that's tricky. I've made some things that knocked my socks off in 4-quart jars, and then it's like, how do you scale this into industrial production size, but keep what you have here?
Yeah.
And so in each spirit, I'd say the first releases probably had some rougher edges, and it's like anything. Your first podcast was not.
It was horrible. You don't have to pull punches. It was awful.
Well,
I listened.
I didn't listen to it, but I just know.
I listened to it before I had Old Mother back on, and it was absolutely horrendous.
Right? And then somebody comes along at some point and probably told you, you're getting really good, and then asked you, like, what are you doing different? You go, I don't know. It's just more reps.
I'm just sitting there and talking. It was good from the beginning.
Just more. No, just more reps. But so, yeah, the dark rum's funny that it was the second thing I worked on. It's just finally coming out. But we did some small mock-ups and tasted it out to people. We can make anything we want. We just can't sell or bottle something until we have approved labels. So, you know, we've had some folks try the dark rum, and everybody's
Awesome.
very, very much happy. And, oh, my God, when can I get this? Like, can I please, I'll give you $100 for that bottle. I'm like, no.
No, it'll cost a lot more than that because I'll be out of business.
Right. Yeah. But no, I mean, so people were really excited about that one. The port whiskey, I don't know, how do we get into that? I wanted to do a port whiskey. So Jazz and I got married at Running Hare. Calvert Brewing, Running Hare's same owner. Loved the venue. So when you do the wedding, you buy wine, a certain amount from the venue. And the wine I love there, and I'm not a wine guy at all. She's the queen of wines, loves wine, knows her wines. But they make the grape that they do grow there, the Chamberson, and I always butcher that. Chamberson? Okay. The Chamberson port, I was floored. It's amazing. It's got chocolate and cherry notes in it. And I was like, it's one of those, it's like when people try BlueDyer, it's like, this can't be from Waldorf. This is I'm sitting there going, this wine doesn't come from Calvert County. Like, this is world class. This is delicious wine. And I wanted to get into a port finished whiskey from there when I tried that. And it just took us a while to, it was always something that I had on the back of my mind as something I'd like to do. And then we came across the opportunity to get these casks for a reasonable cost point, and so we just pulled the trigger. And so that's, plus it's another one. There aren't, maybe there's a dozen scotches that are port barrel finished. I don't know that there's a ton of American whiskeys or bourbons that are port cask finished or port barrel finished. So it's another one it's a niche. And if done well, those are good products for the small producer. Baltimore Whiskey Company did Amaro, and everybody I think is really happy with what they've done. I don't think there needs to be 2 or even 5 Amaros, but you know, I mean, if somebody wants to go in that direction, but that's a niche. It's local. It's good. You know, that'll probably sell well for them.
Yeah. It was good.
I wanted to try the Szechuan peppercorn one because I like Szechuan peppercorn.
I like the coffee one the best just because I love coffee. But the
well, we got something coming for you.
Do you have a coffee rum?
No. No.
Coffee whiskey? Coffee gin?
No.
Coffee.
It's a beer thing.
Oh.
It's a beer thing. I think we can announce it because Mully's already
they already announced
put out a teaser announcement. But we're doing a collab with Mully's Brewery. They're doing the stout using coffee.
I just had their hazy not lazy.
Everybody's loving
delicious.
That. Yeah, that is getting great reviews. Cindy and the Mully's crew over there have been good stewards of us coming up because they've been around, you know, a few years longer. And when we had, you know, where do we source grain, or when I had different questions, I mean, they've always been great, trying to help me out, point me in the right direction where they could. But so they're going to use coffee from the only independent, fair trade, organic coffee roaster in Charles County, which is called We Bean Coffee out of La Plata. our buddy Eric Herman, and he's done a bunch of cold brew coffees with our barrels.
Oh, cool.
Sold them at the farmer's market. Because the La Plata Farmer's Market is literally like Eric's coffee shop with a few people selling vegetables and us. Like 10 out of 10 people are getting a coffee, and then a few filter over to the market. But he's the busiest draw there. Does a great job. So he's providing the coffee. Mully's is making the stout with the coffee. We're aging in BlueDyer's rum barrels.
Nice.
Boom. We just need
That's
a name
gonna
for this.
Flavor for days.
Right.
Yeah, right.
There's your name.
That's what you should call it.
Flavor for days.
Better than the name that I won't say.
No.
That loosely referenced the fact 3 entities were involved, and then you can roam through agitation there, and everyone's shot me down. But beer labels are supposed to be outrageous. You know?
There you go. Flavor for days. I won't even require royalty.
Okay.
You just use it.
We'll just. But we're super excited because we believe wholeheartedly in co-marketing, co-branding, and collaborative activities. We found working with the food vendors, working with our coffee vendor, and now we're finally starting to be able to work with some other craft alcohol producers on products. I mean, it's all just you don't know who from Mully's is going to find out about BlueDyer and who from BlueDyer's fan base, customer base, social media connections will find out about Mully's as a result of collaborating. And then, of course, Eric has a big draw.
They already all know Eric.
Yeah. But, I mean, so these things are some of the most...
So really, you guys just want to mooch off of his celebrity.
Pretty much.
That's actually funny. So Eric's a bearded guy, and I grew this after I retired because for 15 years I'd shave every day, so I didn't even know my face could grow a beard. This is my retirement celebration beard. But one lady said when she found out Eric and I were doing a collaboration, she goes, so Eric's like the Ryan of coffee, and Ryan's like the Eric of liquor. Right? Yeah, I get it, yeah.
So where should people go to keep track of you guys, and exactly where can people find you?
Yeah, Facebook and Instagram, the best ones to keep track of the different events and different products that we're going to be releasing. Where to find us, our best place is the website.
You get the interactive map. I mean, we're in close to 200 places in Maryland. We're in D.C. We're in Delaware.
What's the URL?
www.BlueDyerDistilling.com.
I thought you were just going to say google.com.
Yeah, right. That's what.
BlueDyer Distilling Company. That's what everyone will do anyway,
Right.
So I don't even know why I ask you what the
Yeah,
URL
it is. If you just type in, BlueDyer, we're the first thing that pops up now. So, yeah, you can check us out. There's a where to buy section on there, and you just click in your area, and I try to keep it up to date as possible. A little spreadsheet that will update it on there when I do it. So,
and I'm going to guess that you guys are craft beer fans a little bit.
Yes, sir.
So what's your favorite Maryland beer?
Honey?
What's the one you brought me?
Independent, out of Bel Air.
I absolutely love them.
I'm going with Jailbreak Infinite Amber. I
Nice.
stole yours? I can come up with another one. I like to drink everything. It's got alcohol in it.
most of my stuff's Jailbreak. I really like what those guys are doing. It helps that they're.
Wait, I rescind my answer. It's Mully's because they're our buddies and they're close.
No, but they're
The blonde.
the
new blonde they did.
the blood orange.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, the blood orange is
Delicious.
absolutely. We had so many people coming over to our tent that were raving about this blood orange, and we had people coming to the distillery and we were talking about Mully's, and they'd be like, "Oh, we just got,
The blood orange.
however many. We just bought out the stock that this store had because you can't find it. So finally, I had to go have it, and it's absolutely delicious." So I like Jailbreak. I recently bought a house up in Laurel, and that's where I live now.
Okay.
So I feel a little connection to them.
Yeah.
Plus I happen to like the fact that it was, the name coming from. We didn't like our current professions,
Yeah.
so you know what we're gonna
It's
do
exactly you guys.
exactly. So
Right.
I feel a connection there.
I like Oliver's IPAs as well. Union.
Brewer's Art's pretty amazing too. I lived in Baltimore for a while.
So
and
beer.
essentially. Actually, yeah. Really, anything that's really well made, you can tell that there's a passion for quality product, and that definitely comes through. I mean, as you can tell, like as you said from the tour, this is our version of this. Like you can tell when it's not, it's their version of something, or if it's something that they were passionate about. It's like Baltimore Whiskey Company coming up with their different products. Like you can tell that they're passionate about the certain products that they're making.
He is definitely passionate.
Yeah, so but you can tell because
in a great way.
Yeah, and trying some of their stuff, I'm like, man, I don't even know what this is, and then you try it and you're like, I still don't know what it is,
but it's good.
But it's amazing, and clearly you were incredibly passionate about it. So
that's kind of one thing that I lament about is, I'm the chief sandwich artist at BlueDyer. No, they're just writing the recipes. And so, like, on this hand, there's the artistry. And if I could just go to work and just be an artist with, like, no limitations or restrictions and not worrying about paying this bill, it would be glorious. But there's
Fortunately, people want money from you.
Yeah.
Apparently everybody. That's what we're finding out.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's all these other elements that get in the way of the art. So, but why I say that is it's super refreshing that there is so much great artistry coming through in this whole growing industry, and it's neat to see Maryland Micros have won a pile of medals.
It's like everyone that comes in here has right? has won medals for someone. It's like, is anyone making anything good in the rest of the country?
Right.
Well, there's great, and here's the thing: there are great distilleries all over the country right now, but when you talk about hubs, like concentrations of really good distilleries, just my personal opinion, I think upstate New York has sort of separated itself for having a lot of good producers in one particular area. Mm-hmm. And I think Maryland, which is coming up on or maybe has broken 20 micros, and for a small estate we are.
And in a very short amount of time.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
For it being legal.
Yep.
Right.
We're starting to sort of become this hub where it's it's not just one, it's not two, it's almost every distillery's got some really good products. So that's neat too. It's a little badge of honor, feather in our cap. The Maryland guys, doing a good job.
Turns out you guys know what you're doing.
Yeah. Turns out we kind of make a kind of okay.
We're pretty okay at the spirit thing.
Yep.
All right. Well, I think everyone is probably sick of hearing Jasmine talk at this point.
You have to ask
just
her a question.
going on and on. I don't know. I don't think I have anything left.
Right.
Yeah. What's your favorite spirit that's okay that
I guess the
Brian
most
makes?
Okay one will have to be the rum. I feel like that's the baby. It's what this.
I think you should add that tagline to the bottle. The most okayest
rum that we make.
Yeah. Most okayest product that we make.
Yeah. I mean, I love them all, but the rum is my favorite child, I must admit.
She's probably saying that because for a while, none of us were allowed to drink the whiskey because we didn't have enough.
I'm not sure.
So we don't have enough to we have to sell every bottle of whiskey we have, so we actually can't drink the whiskey ourselves. So
you're forced to like the rum.
Yeah. But we still do it at the distillery. Like that's what
Sneak
we drink.
it.
Oh yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
It's
things you learn on Uncapped.
Oh no.
We're gonna have a family meeting when we get home. I'm laying down the law.
Yeah, right.
No, the whiskey, every time we bottle a batch, like zombies show up to the door, tear the door open, and buy it all. And then we had a bunch of times where we launch a 50 case, 60, 70 case bottling, and it sells out quickly, and then we're out for short periods, sometimes 2 weeks.
I mean, as much as that sucks to not have product they can't fulfill, I mean, that's got to be a good feeling, though. Because that's not an inconsequential amount of.
It's hard to look on the bright side of that one.
Yeah,
when you got people
think
that
about
want,
how much money you could be making and how many people you could be
gotta keep the
making
lights
happy.
on.
And you get, it's like Dad's anecdote. Like, you can't rush it, so you're just sitting there and don't have something that people want. Like, nobody wishes I had whiskey more than me, sir.
Yeah.
But surprisingly, ripped us up in the reviews for running out of whiskey.
No, that's where we thought the first bad one was like, yeah, we really like the whiskey.
That still wouldn't count.
Yeah, because I was literally, we were going out to stores and having to buy a bottle of the whiskey to sample.
That's insane.
To make sure. So we'd go up to, I'd go to one of the local stores and they're like, hey, Walker, what's going on? And I was like, hey, I just need to buy this bottle of whiskey. They're like, what do you mean? I don't really understand.
Most expensive
what's
tasting
happening.
ever.
Yeah, like what's happening right now. And I was like, well, I need to buy a couple bottles of whiskey because we're actually out at the distillery and I need to pour out samples because I don't want people coming down and not being able to try it. We can just tell them you can't buy it from us, but you can still buy it from some of the stores that still had it.
We rock an occasional piece of accidental genius. Maybe that actually helped drive further demand for it. Like sometimes
scarcity.
It's the cookie jar theory. You want what you can't have. Right?
Yeah.
So, but it really just boiled down to this is it. Maybe my son is 19. He helps out in the production space sometimes. My dad comes down. And that's pretty much the crew. I
haven't mentioned yet. I love your labels. I love it's just the classy, simplistic, not all the words that you wanted to put on it. So.
That's what I have these folks for. Because me personally, I try to put on about 11 different patterns of camo in the same outfit, and I get vetoed. Like, no, you can't go out of the house.
I'm glad you didn't use camo. That may have not sold as many bottles.
That's where I am.
But they worked with a graphic designer and came up with the logo and designed the labels. But it goes back to know what you're good at. Like I know that design and arranging things is spatial. My art is not visual.